Mr. TV Mohandas Pai, Chairman Manipal Global Education, Mr. Siddiqui and Manu, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you all back with us for the first keynote session of the program with Mohan. We are indeed privileged to have not just an outstanding speaker, but I think one of my favorite speakers. I never go to sleep when he's speaking, Mr. Mohandas Pai, Chairman Manipal Global Education and former CFO and Head of HR Education and Research at Infosys. Mohan, it is a pleasure to have you join us today, and my personal thanks to you for accepting my request to do this session for AIMA this afternoon. You have achieved fame for both your financial acumen and your passion for HR in both the corporate and government sectors. At the peak of your career at Infosys, you chose to step away from finance to take charge of human resource development and led the transformation of HR at the company. As an investor, you have been particularly supportive of HR startups. You're also a futurist, and this is a great opportunity for us to learn about HR in the new order of work and in the world. Thank you for joining us and a very, very warm welcome to you. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have lived through during the past year has changed our world. We live, work, and do business differently. There's a lot more technology involved in everything, and there's a new preference for distance instead of closeness. In this new world order, work and organization have to be reinvented. There is a need for new attitudes and customs and new processes and structures to succeed in a hyper digital age. The shock of extreme disruption during lockdowns has brought resilience to the center stage, and instant adaptability has become a top priority. While technology is the centerpiece of the necessary flexibility, HR has a key role in bringing a high level of agility to an organization. HR has to work out new ways of acquiring, retaining, and maximizing talent. Remote work is the outstanding feature of the changed world. The fact that most people could do everything without gathering at designated places for the same duration has created new opportunities and challenges for HR. Now, HR has to take work to the talent and not bring talent to work. In any case, after the COVID experience, the talent does not seem to want to relocate to the place of the employer. And the employers too do not seem to want to spend big money on fancy addresses and premises. However, as companies learn to access talent in low cost without reference to location, HR has to learn to manage dispersed organizations consisting of local, distant employees and regular employees and gig workers. In the new world order, primacy has shifted to work from hierarchy. Assigning roles and authority for getting things done is outmoded. HR must shift focus to the capabilities to do things. Skill is the new king at the workplace, and HR has to help everyone to learn the critical skills. In the new world, career growth would be linked to constant updation and expansion of business and technical skills. As vaccines reach people and the headline COVID starts to turn less scary, though numbers seem to be going up again, especially in some of the cities, there is a temptation to go back to the pre-COVID work practices. However, the disruption of the pandemic, the pandemic has introduced organizations to a new experience, and it is unlikely that they would want to throw away the gains of remote work and business resilience measures. Still, it would be a new territory for HR when people can come to offices, but do not have to, at least not all of them. Designing structures and systems that accommodate hybrid work and diverse workforce is the biggest challenge for HR leaders in 2021. We have the perfect speaker to address all these issues and more in Mohan. Mohan, it is now my pleasure to invite you to speak to a very large number of HR audience who have gathered here today. I can see over 255 in number already. So over to you.
Thank you, Rekha. Folks, it is exciting to be back with you speaking about HR, especially at this point of time. Rekha made some very important points. 200 years ago, the Industrial Revolution started in Europe and changed the world. For thousands of years, the world was ruled by empires. Asia was the dominant power. Then the machine took over. The Industrial Revolution came and the world changed and Europe started dominating. It took time for Europe to demonstrate its domination. But today we are in the midst of the digital revolution. It is dawned on us all of a sudden because of COVID. It was there at the back of everybody's mind, and in business, But suddenly, because of COVID and the lockdowns, the digital revolution is upon us. People's habits have changed. When the world shut down, and we know what happened in this country too, everybody went on to a digital platform for their entertainment, for their purchases, for their banking, for their health, for their education, and everything else. We're all locked up at home, but we lived and worked as if things had not changed at all. We are on Zoom. Instead of traveling to meet people, we could go on a video and talk to people. Everybody came. It was easy to do because the world was wired and the world had mobile phones on which you could talk to everybody else. And if you look at the world today with 7.8 billion people, there are approximately 8 billion mobile phones. There are more than 6 billion people, 6 billion people who are connected to the internet, and about 4.5 billion people who are connected to social media. And this habit, which has been coming along, changed all of a sudden in the lockdown because everybody started depending upon digital media and on your mobile and on the internet for most things day in and day out. I can still recall that young children used to get up in the morning, wash up, put on the uniform, and then go to the neighboring room, open their laptop, and do their schooling with teachers digitally, close the laptop at 4 o'clock, go to the rooms, change, and start playing in the next room. Now, they just adjusted to what is happening. Now, what has been the impact of COVID? Well, first of all, we need to understand that COVID has impacted a larger part of the world geographically than at any point of time for a single event in world history. The last two times it happened were the First World War and Second World War, but then the war was localized in parts of Asia and in Europe largely, with a little bit of Africa in the First World War and in the Second World War too, in the north of Africa. But it did not impact so many countries. Of course, there weren't that many countries. It didn't impact so many of them. And the war happened over a period of years, 1939 to 1945. And nothing happened all of a sudden, right? The war happened incrementally. Now, when the global financial crisis happened in 2008, Europe was impacted and the United States was impacted. I was in Wall Street on, I think, September 15th, 2008, if I remember, walking down and just seeing that, the grand building of Bear Stearns was shutting down. People are just walking off with boxes. It is very strange going there, but that didn't change the world. It changed a part of the world, not the entire world. Now, when COVID happened, there was a lockdown. Everybody was at home, and a large part of the industry just went off. But we still lived, we still worked, and we're still here. And the COVID is still not over, but our habits have changed. So the biggest thing that happened now is the digital revolution has come. People's habits have changed. When people's habits are changed, they don't revert back to the past. They keep the changed habits with them, and now business has to adjust to what is there. Now, the second thing which happened was many industries were hurt, but the digital industry, especially the internet industry, saw a huge spike in value. If you look at the top 10 most valuable companies in the world, almost all of them are digital companies, starting with Apple, then Alphabet, and then you have Microsoft, etc. All of them are digital companies. Not one is a non-digital company selling oil or a bank or whatever it is to which most of us have been used to. And why is that? Because the market is giving huge values to them. The third important thing that's happened is that the world has seen $15 trillion of stimulus. Almost all countries have come out with stimulus. The United States had the stimulus yesterday with $1.9 billion and $9 trillion. And $15 trillion of liquidity coming in the market means the world is surplus with cash. Enormous amount of money is available. They've all been printed by the government. The central banks of various countries have purchased these bonds. They're pushing it down the throat of people. And this huge influx of money is going to go outside the United States and Europe, go to the rest of the world, and there could be asset bubbles. And this will bring about dramatic change in the way of corporate acquisitions and new investments, etc. And you're seeing that in the United States as it is. The next important change is about interest rates. We know that in factors of production, human capital, human beings is important, physical assets are important, and then money is important. Now, when money becomes very cheap, money changes corporate behavior. Money interest rates have come down. The United States has interest rates 0.25% for overnight money. The UK has a 0.10%. It is negative in Switzerland, negative in Japan. Today, out of $45 trillion of global bonds by OECD, maybe 25 trillion are in negative interest rates, largely in Japan and Europe. And for the next 2 years, the Federal Reserve of the United States has said that they're not going to raise interest rates. One fallout of this low interest rates is the rise of zombie companies. Zombie companies are companies which can not repay back their loans, which cannot service high interest rates, but can only service low interest rates, if at all. They're kept alive because of liquidity, because of the stimulus, and because people need jobs. So the governments too all over are pumping in liquidity. Another issue which is happening is the reorganization of supply chain. The world discovered that 24% of global manufacturing was happening in China, and China had the largest supply chain in the world. And the world was shocked when they discovered that 92% of some medicine in the United States was from China. Now the world is rearranging supply chain because they don't want to depend on China. Japan has got a $3.5 billion program to incentivize corporations to move away from China. So we'll see a redistribution of supply chains all over and the increasing use of automation. The next point which has happened to many other economies and corporations is that automation has taken off. The digital innovation, digitization has taken off. Every company is going digital. If every corporation goes digital, they will rearrange the supply chain. They'll relook at their processes, relook at their people, relook at everything else. So the entire thing is up for grabs because people feel threatened by this dramatic change and there's a huge amount of spending happening. In 2019, $2.1 trillion was spent on automation around the world. And I estimate that in this year, calendar year 2021, we could be seeing $2.5 to $3 trillion being spent on digitization. And there's enormous amount of money that's going to have an impact. So all these events are giving out a message to all of us. What is that message? And the message for us is very clear. The future is digital. We are in the midst of the digital revolution. And I think, AIMA is to take sessions, leadership in the digital era. So we were talking about it 2 or 3 years ago. I think Rekha and I have done many seminars, but today we are in the midst of it. It's all landed, it's come to a table, and we are actually part of it. So what should enterprises do? How should enterprises react? My way is very simple. The old way of doing business is gone. The old way of hiring, recruiting is gone. The old way of compensating is gone. The old way of having officers is gone. Everything is up for renegotiation, for relooking whatever we want to do. So I would urge all HR professionals in the new world order to first reimagine your business. In the digital era, how would you like your business to be? Reimagine your business. Reimagine the business and the enterprise, say in the year 2025. How do you think it'll be and what kind of organization it will be? I mean, why 2025 is 5 years? 5 years is a long time. Don't go beyond that. I know it's difficult to reimagine 5 years what will happen because of innovation. Things could happen dramatically. But using the information we have and what we're doing, reimagine how things are going to be. And once you reimagine, you get a business model. You get a model of a business, which is your business. And essentially, the changes will be in how you deliver to the customers, how you add value, and how you deal with people. And all these are very important things for you to reimagine a business enterprise in the new world order. And once you reimagine a business enterprise, it becomes easier for you as practitioner HR to sit down and work out what is the kind of human capital that you would need. When I say human capital is all about people, I'm using the term human capital just to put it in the proper context. Because you need human capital, you need physical capital, you need financial capital in business and enterprises. So once you reimagine your business and the world, has changed, what competition is doing, you are to say, what kind of human capital is required? What kind of people, what kind of skills? How is the hierarchy to be? And how is the entire setup going to be? And once you do that, the kind of people you want, the kind of skills they want, to the best of your ability. Try this exercise, and I'm sure you'll all succeed, and it'll be quite revealing. And work on the basis there are no constraints, that you have unlimited resources, you can hire whom you want, and the market is behaving in a particular way. Because once you have to reimagine, you put constraints, your answers will not be the optimal answers. And once you reimagine, then you can do a reality check and start putting in constraints on the model so that you know what can be possible and what cannot be possible. So you have to look at your human capital, look at the skills of people, and look at what kind of people are required and what kind of skills are required. And once you do that, like all consultants, gap analysis, the people you have in the enterprise, can they fit the bill? can they all do the things that you want them to do? And then you've got to do a really good exercise. And once you do that, you'll find that many of them will not be able to make the transition to a digital era. Many of them have a role which may not exist. Many of them don't have the skills to do that. And many of them are doing process jobs which could be automated. In every enterprise, I'm sure 25 to 30%, maybe 50% of the roles will disappear by 2025. And maybe 25% of the roles will be new roles, which you don't have right now, or you don't have in large enough numbers. And maybe 25% will not exist at all. And this is something that all of you have to look at. I had a discussion with the board of a very large bank, one of the largest in the country, and we are talking about training and HR, and I told them to reimagine. Because look at banking today. Does anybody go to a bank branch anymore? No. Everything is digital. You transfer money on your app, you look at a bank account on your mobile, and you get money from somebody automatically on your in a bank account, and you call them up if you need anything or something else. And once you're able to call, you are seeing the change that is happening. And the person told me that in his office, which is a very large building with a lot of people, all of them above the age of 50, all of them are working from home. And he said, we come out with rules to work from anywhere. Not only work from home, work from anywhere. You can work from a mall, you can work from a village, you can work from anywhere. You don't have to stay anywhere else. And those kind of activities are going to happen. Now, in the IT industry, when COVID hit, there were 45 lakh employees. 90% of them transitioned to work from home within the first 30 days. 90%. It's enormous. We have never seen this change before. And out of that, maybe 20% went to their hometowns away from the big cities where they are. And even today, the big campuses of big IT companies don't have people. They've only got 10, 15% people who have come. And they're all working all over. And because people are working all over, the business model has changed. In the IT industry, people wanted to go on site, go work in New York, London, in the client's offices. They've not been able to travel for the last 1 year because there are no international flights and nobody wants to do quarantine once you land up there. The visas are not being given because President Trump earlier, and they're all used to working from home. And their clients too are working from home. And once you work from home, it doesn't matter where your workforce is. Your workforce could be next door, could be in the same city, could be in a neighboring country, could be far away. And so long you're all connected digitally, it doesn't matter where you are, because once you work from home, you are not in the single location where you are. And people's habits have changed. Now, when you look at work from home, which is a new way of working for a large number of people, it was there earlier, you sporadically, you find a very radical thing. Earlier, before COVID, when you say work from home, young people wanted to work from home. Why is that? They didn't want to commute. They didn't want to come to the campus. They wanted to do other things. They said, we will have our laptop, we'll work from home, blah, blah, blah. And then people who are in the middle, let's say people married with a kid, they also want to work from home because they want to take care of the children. They want to take care of family work. They don't want to commute. Especially women wanted work from home. The senior people are middle-level people, age 45 and above, always wanted to work in the office. Why? For them, as managers, control meant they want to see everybody. So when Rekha used to work from office, she has to see everybody. Everybody has to come and say hi to her every day. She knows that everybody is come. She knows there's attendance. And she knows that actually working, even though I don't know whether we all know what they were doing at the desk, but they're working. We see them and there's happiness enough, right? Now, they didn't want to work home because they're running businesses, they're accountable and they're responsible output. Suddenly, when work from home happened, everybody disappeared, everybody worked from home, you adjusted. Now, it's very comfortable to work from home. Ask Rekha. She doesn't want to go to office. Why commute all the way? Why go to office? The stress and strain. I can go and go out when I want. I can, my life is more productive because I don't travel so much. I can always call up people that I can see their faces. I know they're in Zoom. But if you ask them to, angle their laptop or something, I do know that they are, have got an official dress, whatever we hear of people doing. So senior people now love work from home, and most senior people are empty nesters. They live in larger houses. They're empty nesters. Children are gone away. So the spouse is in another room. You are in another room. You both are happy. You meet maybe for lunch and dinner. and you're working and you're having a lot of meetings, it's quite okay. And maybe you go out once in a while, our habits have changed, we don't travel, etc. So the whole way of work culture has changed. And now when COVID goes away, when things come back, are you going to have everybody come to office? No. Are you going to have everybody come and work together? No. Do you need everybody who used to work with you? We don't know. I think in most enterprises, they say yes, everybody is not required. Do everybody want to go and work? I don't know. Because, when you're senior and, you're past 55, you're all thinking, why should I go to work again? I'm comfortable. I'll get a pension. I can get retirement stuff. And, I can do something else. And I can have a better quality life. I don't have to travel. I don't have to take the stress, blah, blah, blah. So people's habits and people needs to have changed. And today for work from home, what has happened is the younger people who wanted work from home want to come to office. They don't stay in good places. Many of them stay in paying guests. They want to come to offices where they can chat with people, go out for tea, with all the gossip, all the nice socialization is gone. Now, people who have a small child at home are really fed up looking after the child and, living together in a smaller house. They also want to get out. They want the freedom. They want to associate everybody else. Senior people don't want to do that. They want to work from home, go to office once in a while. So the way of work has changed. So we are seeing that, the way of work has changed. Customers have changed their habits. Nobody wants to meet each other because they're not very sure who's going to pass on the virus to somebody else. So the habits have changed. And then the kind of work that you do has changed. Everything has got digitized. The kind of people you need has changed. The kind of interaction you have with customers has changed. The kind of interaction you have with government has changed. Now, if you have a government meeting, you see everybody around the table, everybody is doing digital. You don't have to go to the government office, wait outside. You can pay your tax electronically. You can do so many things electronically. The whole world has changed. And if you do business globally, everything has changed. So look at your enterprise, see what kind of enterprise it is, the kind of people that you want, do a gap analysis, check up against the people, and then see who may change, who may not change, what kind of skills are required, and start hiring them. And start hiring the kind of skills. And when you hire the kind of skills, it's a fantastic opportunity for reconfigure all your business. How do you reconfigure all your business? You really have to decide what is the core of your business. What is it that makes your business viable and valuable? Viable and valuable. Because competition is going to intensify. Capital is going to be available. Competition is going to be more global. And then if you check up what is viable, you find out that in the entire business, certain things have to be done by you where the value addition is enormous. Certain things don't have to be done by you. All the processing work or all the work can be automated. And some of the work can be outsourced. So you don't have to hire too many people. You can shrink and do things much, much better and make people much more accountable. For example, in a bank, the bank branches globally are shrinking because not many people go to visit a bank branch. And most of the people who stay in big cities who do transaction processing can stay at home and can stay anywhere else. And then the banks can call upon people who are retired or people with special skills to still work with them as independent agents, right? And their entire business model is getting deconstructed. For example, the payment business is going away. They used to make a lot of money on payments. Payment business is going away. The lending business is also getting hurt because various options are available for people to borrow. Now their deposit business is getting hurt because of competition. People can move money very easily. So the entire business model has changed and the entire business model has to be reconstructed. And I think that is something that you have to change. So in the new world, things are going to be very different. New models will come up. Next point, which I want to talk about, is about automation and robotics. If we go to a manufacturing plant today, I'm sure our friend from Maruti is here. The entire plant will be automated. We went to the Tesla plant. Rekha was kind enough to take us on a delegation to the Tesla plant. We only saw robots all over the place. And most of the work was being done by robots. And the robots were, working, liftings, and robots don't ask for a wage hike. They don't ask for something called work-life balance. They don't ask for a work-life balance. If you look at Foxconn, which is the largest manufacturer of automated devices and digital devices, they used to have a very large factories in China with about maybe 1.1 million young girls who came from rural areas, worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. Now, when they 5 years ago went and told them for a hike, they were shocked. How can you ask for a salary hike? And those of us in HR know that every year we have to give a salary hike. People ask for it. They replace 50,000 girls with robots. Why is that? Because robots have dexterity in their fingers. When you do electronic assembly, You need your fingers and the dexterity in your fingers, but robots have developed the fingers. So robots can today do a backflip. Robots can walk straight. Robots can lift. Robots can bend. Robots can pull. Robots can do assembly, and robots can do 60% of what human beings can do. So a large part of your manufacturing, large part of what you do is going to be done by machines and is going to be fully automated. I'm on the board of Havels India, and they have a plant in Gilot next to Delhi, as a new plant, fully automated, fully robotized. And once you have those robots, they only require 10 to 20% of people. Now, I'm going to talk about labor and jobs separately, but that's the kind of business model that is coming. Even in garment factories, automation and robotics has taken over. In the shoe factories, robotics and automation has taken over. So in offices, a large part of the work can be done by software apps, etc. Even if you're a teacher, you can have an avatar or you can have a chatbot which can talk to young kids, and you can have the voiceover of a teacher, favorite teacher, or somebody else, and they can correct what you do in maths or something else, and they can guide the child, talk to the child, and you can do it synchronously, asynchronously. The entire business models have changed. So you have to look at the skills that your people have and match them with the skills that is required for the enterprise of the future, for the world of the future, and then try to get people. And when you get people, what are the people you want on your payrolls? What are the people that can be outsourced to others who can do things much, much better? And what are the people you can do as gig workers? Do you really want specialists who are going to be there permanently with you? Or you want people who can come in whenever you want to pay more money, etc.? And what happened to your HR? I was talking yesterday to a company where we invested, which is a human capital leasing business like Team Lease and, Quest. And they were telling us that they had 150 people in the team. Now they manage with about 75. And many of the people have gone a bit to other cities. They're quite comfortable. They shrunk their offices. They have smaller places. There are only 2 levels of people working. And both levels are extremely happy working with each other. And the processing part of the business has been taken away. So your business model has changed. The way you reach your clients has changed. So human capital has to change. And unless you do that, you will not be able to be ready for the business of the future. Now, what does it mean for HR? Now, what did HR mean earlier? HR is all about enhancing the fit between the aspiration of employees and the strategy of the enterprise. The enterprise has a strategy. The enterprise wants to achieve something. And to do that, you need people. People have aspirations. People have certain needs. And HR job is to make sure that the degree of fit between the two is enhanced so that people stick longer, people become productive, and people do the work that is required. And the enterprise prospers because they get access to the best talent. And that's what HR is supposed to do. And now, today, loyalty to companies is coming down. We know that. People want to become gig workers. We know that. People want to change the way they work. They know that. So HR has to address itself to the new reality. And the new reality is what I described based upon the business model, where the business model drives the enterprise and that drives human capital. Now, when the entire thing is changed, HR as an organization also has to change. That means HR within the team itself has to see what kind of people do we require. What HR will require now is partners outside the enterprise who will provide them with human capital, provide them with expertise, etc. They will have to use a lot more technology. They have to digitize and they have to connect with people. And all the services they offer their employees have to be done in a very digital manner. All this has to come together so that unless they all come together and work together, HR will not be able to change. So HR has to be the change leader. HR has to lead and HR has to work for strategy. So the role of HR becomes very important because in reimagining the enterprise of the future, HR's role becomes important because HR has to work with the CEO and the CFO and the COO, everybody to come together and to reimagine and work out the strategy and then reconfigure the workforce. So you have the challenge of taking the existing workforce to the new reality. You have the challenge of getting new talent. You have the challenge of reconfigure the way you provide your services. And you have the challenge of reconfiguring your team also. So what is you want to do for the enterprise, you got to do for yourself. And then you got to constantly look around the world and create a very flexible organization structure. The question you got to answer is, at a time when the world is going through rapid changes, when the digital revolution is upon us, when there is surplus capital and the speed of change is enormous, how will you react to change events? The only way you can react to change events is when you have a very flexible organization structure and a smaller structure where decisions taken can be implemented very fast. In many of the enterprises which have become very large, any decision taken at the top, for it to be implemented takes time because it has to go through multiple levels. So once it goes to multiple levels, possibly the transmission of the decision becomes very much less. Now the transmission has to improve. That means you have to have a flat organization. You have to crunch the organization into lesser number of levels, and you got to make sure that critical decisions are taken, and you got to make sure that you can respond to market threats in a short period of time. So the entire organization structure has to be reconfigured to meet the new reality. So I will stop here, Rekha, and start answering questions, because I think, with this entire expanse of reimagining the enterprise, reimagining business, putting in digital assets, looking at the workforce, doing a gap analysis, taking existing people there, getting new kind of people, and creating the value addition within the enterprise, and then keeping the structure very flexible to react to the outside forces, and making sure that you and your team too do all the work that is required with a smaller team, with a much faster response. And if you're able to do that, you will succeed. And I think all the things that we learned over the last 10, 15 years, we have to rethink again and meet the new normal.
Thank you, Mohan. Thank you so much for giving us a whirlwind snapshot of what the world is looking like, and what business is going through, and what it will look like going forward, and all the challenges associated with it. From what I hear from you, HR has its work cut out, and all the best to all the HR professionals who are logged on today.
Rekha, you should tell us how you are working right now. You're a small organization. How were you working earlier before COVID? How are you working? Because, we all learn by case studies. I'm sure everybody here will have case studies, but you tell us, since you're the moderator, you tell us. And what you like, whether you like working from home.
Okay. I think we changed because we realized that there was no option but to change. When the lockdown happened, we drifted for some time, and we thought we could continue drifting, but the option was that, if you drift, nothing is going to happen this year. It's really going to go down the drain. If you took some action, you could go places, and that's what I think my team did. They decided that they are going to turn completely digital. We turned all our revenue streams digital, and that really helped us in turning AIMA into a digital organization, because frankly there was no other option. But I think here we are talking more about HR. So let me come back to the point, because there are a lot of questions which people have, and right now they don't want to know about AIMA, but they want your views on HR. So I think what you have just said is going to really put a lot of onus on HR managers and HR heads, and they would really need to reimagine their business. It's not only going to be the job of the CEO. I think the HR heads and HR managers will have an equal stake in reimagining businesses going forward, because they are the ones who would need to see whether the skills already exist within the organization or they need to be upgraded, and do the gap analysis that you were talking about, and then figure out what needs to be done to take the organization forward in the in the age of digitization. So how should HR manage the potential risks in taking work to the workers instead of bringing workers to work? You did touch upon it, but I mean, from an HR point of view, how would you manage that?
You see, we have to change the way of working, Rekha. Earlier we had close contact. Socialization is an important requirement for human beings. We're all social creatures. We want to talk, we want to discuss, we want to be together. Now in the digital world, all that is become less. In the last 1 year, we hardly had any face-to-face interaction. So what HR has to do now is to say, how do we create face-to-face interaction based upon need? What is actually needed? How much is needed? And how do we ensure the culture of the organization and the way we all work together go up? Now, the culture of the organization is done by leadership by example, by the leaders walking the talk, the tone at the top, and interaction and touch and feel that you have, right? All of us want touch and feel. The touch and feel is gone. So we have to create opportunities for touch and feel. We cannot run organization, let me tell you, with a distributed workforce where everybody comes by Zoom. It's not going to work. It may work for some time, but it's not going to work, because all of us become distant from each other. There is no loyalty, there's no emotional connect. We need that emotional connect, and HR has to create that emotional connect. That means that togetherness has to be done using technology, togetherness has to be done physically, and training has to be done in a very new manner, and people have to come together, and maybe you create satellite offices all over the place so people don't have to travel, they can go to a place and all work together. And if you have a global business, you know how to do it because you've been doing it for a long period of time. When we ran global businesses in Infosys, we worked in about 50, 60 countries, right? We knew how to work. It was a 24-hour work because, people had different time zones. So we knew how to do it. But locally, there were places where people met and we used to go travel. Imagine you can't travel, you can't go different locations. You can't do away with locations. You have to be distributed because many businesses are distributed. You have to sell to customers all over the place. Now, all your stakeholders, another challenge you have is all your stakeholders who are there. For example, your vendors, your distributors, your other suppliers, your bankers, etc. How do you deal with them? And how do you interact with them? They also change the business model. So I would say that we have to work on new socialization models. You have to work on new ways of interacting with people. And you've got to find out what is important, what keeps people together, and continue that and cut out many of the things which you look back and said they were not relevant, they were good to have, maybe bad to have, maybe habits, and we're changing all that because the interaction time is going to come down.
So this brings us to an interesting question which Murli Krishnan has asked. How does it apply to work? How do you apply work from home for a manufacturing industry where it's more of blue collar management?
Well, for manufacturing industry, they're going to automate. They're going to automate.
They're going to lose their jobs.
Yeah, they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to automate. Siddiqui is here. Mr. Siddiqui is here. He will tell you that all new plants of Maruti are highly automated. Am I right, Mr. Siddiqui?
Oh, yes, Mohan, you are absolutely right. That trend is catching up in a very, very big way. So our Suzuki Motors Gujarat plant, as Mohan rightly said, is highly automated than what we have here in Gurgaon. So he's right. But at the same time, perhaps I think one ethical question which perhaps a company like Maruti will be always looking at, how do we engage people, redeploy them? So maybe supervisory roles, maybe training them, capability building, as Mohan said, big way in terms of making them employable. I think that is one pertinent question which we are debating at this point.
And then jobs in manufacturing are not going to be in the plant, it's going to be in the surround services, right? They're not going to be largely in the plant. The plants where you have 10,000 people, they're all gone. They're all gone for
yes. Yes.
And now with 1,000 people, will come down to maybe 500 or 200. And like Mr. Siddiqui will say, the machines will work 24/7, right?
Absolutely.
Now, when the machines work 24/7, all the labor rules about, pots of water being kept, Mr. Siddiqui will understand all this in the factory. All the things are gone, right? Where the number of people required will be supervisors, not unskilled people, semi-skilled people, a different kind of people. And you can control everything remotely. Maybe, some of the control can be from home. That's why we have to reimagine everything that will happen.
I think what Mohan you said, reimagine, I think is going to be critical.
Yeah.
So, which brings us to a question from Neelam Totlani. She wants to know performance management in virtual work will change. And how can performance be managed more efficiently? How do you ensure that?
See, performance can be managed in future based upon a very, very well-defined output metrics. What do you want the people to do? You got to be able to measure that, right? Unless you're able to measure that effectively, how are you going to measure performance? Now, all of us new in HR, we are very fuzzy about it. We put in a lot of norms and all kind of stuff because, we are not willing to exactly measure output. Now, since people are working from home, we got to measure the quantum of work that we give them, the output that we expect from them, and how do we react? So we got to work on new models. We got to rethink in the business context. How do you do it? In some places, it's very easy because the output is defined. In some places, it's difficult because the output is not there. For example, if you're in sales, you know the output. You got to achieve so many sales numbers, right? If you're in accounting, you know that you got to finish the accounting work in certain ways. So you got to do all that and put that output measures very clearly so people know about it and then, manage the performance. Now, performance included many other things. How do I manage my workforce? how as a leader manage my team, blah, 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 all that. That has been redefined.
Okay. So Sajil Ahmed has this question: how does this transformation impact employee experience, and how can HR ensure that this is unharmed?
Well, that's what, like, I'm sure I want to ask Mr. Siddiqui to the question, but my view is very simple, Rekha. Look, we are not dealing with people today so much. We are not dealt with them for the last 1 year. How did we work? It worked. It can't work the same way. Please, this cannot continue forever. It's not going to work. You need to meet people. You need to talk to people, because remember, I want to use a cliche. A business is like a family too. You need to have interaction. You need to have an emotional connect, or you become very distant. And once you become very distant, people will go away. People will do something else you don't know. You want to be connected. And connection creates greater productivity ultimately, right? It creates innovation. You require people to give you ideas and innovate and everything else, right? And that's why we have to create conditions where everybody meets, everybody talks. It can be electronic, it can be physical, blah, blah. I think we have to do it. Mr. Siddiqui, you have a view?
I fully endorse on what you have said. We are experiencing that at Maruti at this point of time. So we are looking at some hybrid model to really work out this balance, But we have to talk to people and look at this capability issue big way, But you are right that perhaps there are many, many ways to look at it apart from being physically there. I think digitally we have been able to connect with almost 40,000 people. To a great extent, physically would not have been possible in this pandemic situation. And skilling also, it has undergone 360-degree change now. There are very excellent kind of modules which we are able to now, by default, get into during this pandemic. And I think it is serving our needs in a big way.
Rekha, people were resistant to using technology and change. Now they've been forced to do that. So everybody has changed. The users are changed, employees are changed, managers changed. Now, if we check up how we do things, that could be the template on which we can build the future. So we have to document how we are doing things right now, how things are working. For example, performance management. Now time is going to come next month when you have to measure performance management for the year. You got to have promotions, you got to have increments. How are you going to do it, right? You probably did it half year. Now you got to have the rigor. So if you look at what you had actually done, that can be a good example for the future.
But isn't it true that there are a certain percentage of employees who are actually delivering whatever needs to be delivered while sitting at home? Because there are a number of them who probably have no option but to do nothing, because their role is such. I mean, they could be, serving tea, coffee in the organization, or, doing any other such job. So how do you do their performance appraisal?
Well, there you have to be considerate and just give some general marks and everything and decide what you want to do with them, because there's nothing else. You can't measure the output, right? If I'm an office boy in the office, what is the poor man going to do or poor woman going to do, right? So, like Mr. Siddiqui said, we cannot bring about this change in a job-scarce country like India heartlessly. We can't do that. We should not do that. We have an obligation to our people. We have an obligation to people who have given the best years of their life to us. So I would urge everybody in this call to make sure we are very humane, we are very compassionate. We don't throw out people out of the job just like that because we feel that they're not required. We deal with them properly. We take care of them to the best of our ability. And we try to work it out properly. We got to be extremely humane, because this transition is all of a sudden.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree with you, because these are the people who have actually helped build up the organization. And just because, things have changed does not mean that, they get ignored. So
things have changed. Rekha, things have changed we become an algorithm and we become a robot.
I agree. They are coming in any case, no, according to you.
Yeah.
It's best that we don't become robots.
I want to tell you, Rekha,
the charge of the robots is coming.
Yeah, Rekha, Mr. Siddiqui, sometime it could happen that, a robot could be a substitute for an employee. And, actually tax the robot to pay the salary of the employee. So robot becomes a surrogate.
Oh, yes. I think somewhere to a great extent in the context of our country, we'll have to look at a healthy, balance in terms of using this digital kind of potential technology impact for reach, for speed, for maybe responsiveness, But keep that personal touch to a great extent. That will be our winning card, I think, moving forward.
Because remember, Rekha, remember, you still need people. And when good people want to join you, they're going to remember how you dealt with people during this crisis, because they know if there's another crisis, they could be the victims.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. So since we have a lot of questions, I'm going to combine some and go through the others very quickly. So Tayaba Naqvi and Surya Teja have questions. They both have questions on the organizational culture. So Tayaba says, sir, what changes in organizational culture should be made to increase employee engagement while working from home post-COVID crisis? And Surya says, working remotely.
You see, I'll tell you, today what has happened is extraordinary, but it's not going to be the new reality. The new reality is going to be a hybrid model, work from home, work with office. Okay, so you got to be prepared for that. You're not going to spend so much of time like earlier, you're going to spend less time. So you need to have a digital interaction where people come together, people talk to each other, people chat, and people feel belong. Then you need to have physical interaction where you're able to do all that in a very different way. But the interaction with everybody has to be constant and has to be continuous. The interaction will not stop. The way of interacting may change using technology, but physically also is important. That means maybe HR has to travel more. Instead of making employees come to HR has to travel more, go to other places, call people who are at a restaurant for a cup of tea and talk to them and keep small groups and meet all of them and do that. The CEO may have to travel more to other places and do that rather than getting everybody here. Maybe that could be more efficient. So you've got to reimagine new ways of doing things. And for that, Rekha, if all of the people in this group are able to write down their experiences in response to all the questions and how they're dealing with it, the wisdom of this crowd, like you call the wisdom of the crowd, would be greater than anybody having an opinion, because everybody has dealt with unique situations. We could all learn.
Absolutely right. Actually, it's a very interesting idea. And if the delegates would agree to it, we would love to get your feedback, which you could mail to us or post it on the chats. But going further, Mohan, you're involved with a lot of startup companies. So Joydeep has a question. What is the new normal for startup companies, especially in training and development industry from the HR perspective?
Well, in the training and development industry, like I said, greater use of technology. I keep repeating that because that is actually what is working. Interactions and delivery through digital technologies and chatbots for continuous conversation. So training becomes asynchronous, self-training, which becomes that much more important, and creating events where people can come together. Because, all those things are extremely important because the delivery mechanism has changed. When you have L&D, delivery mechanism has changed. The touch and feel has changed. So I would urge you, look at how you reacted and what you did, talk to your peers and come to a conclusion, and that will give you insights. Because, Rekha, there is the problem. Now, three of us, we have spent 25, 30, 40 years in business. Our attitudes are very different, right? Now, there are young people who spend 5 years, working together. Their attitudes are very different. The worldview is very different. The people in the middle, the worldview is very different. Now, what we feel is our view may not be the view HR needs to deal with people who are very different. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, every generation in an organization, there'll be 4 generations, 5 generations, right? Because why? A generation now is 10 years or less. Now, their needs are very, very different. I think that's why we need more surveys, more discussions, more understanding with everybody, find out what people want. And all the new policies have to be from the employee point of view rather than from the employer point of view. So we got to flip it. All of us are used to centralized decision making where the boss decides and 4 or 5 people sit together, decide and push it down and say, hey, this is the way. And everybody says, okay, sir, yes, sir, and do it. Now, that is gone. It's got to be employee-led. And then employees have to tell us, how do you like the interaction? What do you want? And collect all the information. Then work out what people like. And because everybody's situation is different today.
Mr. Siddiqui is smiling.
Yeah, so, I think, Rekha, to a great extent, we are looking at
this. It's a revolutionary thought.
Yeah, looking at this listening leadership perspective as he was indicating. So earlier we were in the mode of telling leadership most of the time, as he rightly said. But I think we'll have to selectively delete the past and learn this kind of appreciating people, empowering people, listening to people, driven by people. That will be the real HR. Because I think the youngest generation in Maruti is just 25, 26 years old. Very different than what we talk, what we think. So we cannot be right. As Mohan said, we cannot be right. So we have to listen to them a lot. So listening leadership perspective is becoming very dominant. Distributed leadership, so that when he says HR will have to travel, CEOs will have to travel. What we are doing in Maruti is that 30, 40 people in the distributed leadership are taking that load, to connect with people physically as well as electronically. So instead of one CEO, Ayukawa-san only doing it, I think 25, 30 of us are doing it. So somewhere I think we'll have to pick up these new learnings, as Mohan rightly said, and be open about it. Be very flexible about it, rather than getting governed by our 40 years of legacy. It may work, may not work.
And also, Rekha, we must move to a very empowered organization where we trust people more, give them the ability to do things on their own much more independently, and empower them more, take decisions, because they'll be forced to take decisions much more than earlier. Where they're dealing with situations, they have to decide, and they have to be empowered.
So Rahul has an interesting question whose answer I'm going to give it to him, but I also want to hear your views, Mohan. He's saying, in the entire business ecosystem going digital, do you think skills, values like interpersonal skills will lose its importance in business corridors? I would say no, a big no, because even how you write digitally is extremely important. Those are also, interpersonal skills. But Mohan, I'd love
No, I think interpersonal skills have to change, because we have to learn how to interact digitally, because we are all visible. And two, we have to keep that tradition alive, the humanness alive, the connection alive. See, Rekha, at the end of the day, it's an emotional bond with everybody. Why do people perform great things? Because the emotional bond. You ask Mr. Siddiqui, people who work 25, 30 years, the loyalty, emotional bond is enormous. If there's a crisis, they'll work day and night without asking for more money to make sure everything is there. They want the enterprise to succeed. That kind of loyalty, how was it built up over a period of time? Because there's an emotional bond. And that is what makes great enterprises, where we don't want a mercenary attitude. I will only do if you pay me more. Now my time is over, my clock is over, I'm not going to work. That's not the culture that can succeed.
True.
And how will that culture come? Where you have an emotional bond? By greater interaction, either digitally or physically, by being close to them, talking to them. One thing will happen, Rekha, we need more counselors. See, mental health issues, loneliness and all that is going to, interaction points come down. So we need more counselors. And all of us have to become a little bit of counselors too, because the people are going to talk to, they have to open up to us. You understand? So the touch and feel will be more heavy. It'll be more heavy, more needed. Earlier we thought, we'll call 200 people, talk to them, say nice, goody things and go away. That's not possible now. And the stress of work from home and the stress of digital working is also high. Maybe productivity is high, but the stress is high because human beings are not attuned to be widgets. They're not attuned. Our DNA is not there. It's against our DNA.
I absolutely agree with you, because there are times now that I think longingly of my office and going back to it. Hopefully soon we'll be able to do that. But Mohan, we are fast running out of time and there's still a lot of questions. I don't think I'll be able to take all of them. So my apologies in advance. So I'm going to take one last question from Jay Prabha. She says, great input, sir. Digitization helps organizations to manage the unprecedented happenings such as COVID-19, but socialization through digitization is not a substitute for engaging workforce, and things being automated will affect existing skill labors. What about reskilling those human capital when they are talented, and how it affects the present labor force, as many of them will exit from the job and forcefully they will turn unemployed due to this? What is
That's why I'm telling. That's why, Rekha, we need more compassion in business. We need more human interaction, and you must appeal to a sense of humanness to deal with this situation. All right, all across. For example, when COVID happened, Many of us got together and said, we must give money to families who are impacted and started giving out money. Many of us worked with Akshay Patra others to make sure we feed a lot of people. We delivered food everywhere. A lot of people did that on their own. Why did they do that? Because, we're all together in this thing, right? It's an unprecedented situation. Now, within the business too, is unprecedented. I'm sure all the good companies have, we didn't lay off anybody. We didn't ask anybody to go. And many enterprises, startups, they cut the salaries of top management, but made sure the people are together. Now, this is important, right? Leadership example is about self-sacrifice. It's not about chopping the neck of others. That is the Western culture. That's not our culture. So how do you deal with people? That's why you got to talk to people, make things simple for them, train them much better, check up what is their interest in many alternative jobs that are available. What is their interest? Many of them will not be able to do it, Rekha. They will not be able to change. It's very difficult. Once you're 45, 50, I'm sorry to say this, your habits get ingrained. It's not difficult. It's very difficult to change. How do you deal with them? So you've got to find out what they can do and train them and do everything else. So I think all these things have to come, but they can only come when you start talking to people. We got to talk more to people, every single person.
So I think I have to take this last question because I think it's very relevant. And I think while you've already answered it in many different ways, but I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So Anjali from KVIM Coimbatore has asked, what made you a successful HR head? So in your opinion, what did you do right, Mohan? Let's hear from you.
What I did right was to start empathizing with people. I remember my first day as the director HR, my HR team came to my room. They were curious. This fellow who beat us up never gave us money, even though I made sure they got more money every year. They got loan scheme, they got ESOPs. I did everything. What is he going to do? Then one HR person asked me, sir, can I ask a question? I said, yes. Can we trust you to do work for HR? I said, why do you ask? Well, you're a CFO, and CFOs are supposed to be difficult people with money. I think Mr. Siddiqui knows that. So I told him, till yesterday, when a person walks into my room, I looked at the person at the net present value of a future stream of revenues. Now, when you come into my room, I look at you as a human being who requires empathy and who I have to satisfy to meet your needs. So my attitude has changed. So I think I was successful because I empowered my team. I worked with them closely and communicated with them to make sure we are all aligned. I listened to them, like Mr. Siddiqui said, to understand what it is. We worked together to have solutions. We communicated much, much more, right? And we explained things to them, and we spent much more time engaging with them.
I love your answer, Mohan. And on that lovely note, many thanks once again for doing this for AIMA, taking time out. I know you have had a very busy day. We took your time in the morning also for the AIMA Council meeting, but thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you.
I'm looking at some of the comments on chat, and I think the audience have really enjoyed the session. Especially, you bring so much energy and enthusiasm into any session that you just light it up. So thanks a lot for taking the questions and elaborating on your insights about HR New World Order. And ladies and gentlemen, I will need to end this session now. It's exactly 4:45, and this brings us to the end of the session. And thanks a lot for joining us here today. Thank you, Mr. Siddiqui, and thank you, Mani. And once again, thank you, Mohan.
Thank you. Big.
Good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.